You're listening to The Other 50%, a herstory of Hollywood. I'm Julie Harris Walker. This is the podcast where I talk to successful women in entertainment and hear their stories. Today I got to catch up with previous guest Sujata Day. With her infectious personality and unique sense of humor, Pittsburgh native Sujata Day has firmly established herself in Hollywood as a performer, creator, writer, and director. She regularly performs in the hit Upright Citizen Brigade show, Asian AF. Sujata is known for her starring role as CeCe in Issa Rae's The Misadventures of Awkward Black Girl. She's recurred for 3 seasons on HBO's Insecure. Sujata is a Sundance Lab Fellow, Sundance Film Festival influencer, and Sundance Collab advisor. Her short film, Cowboy and Indian, sold to a major studio for series development, with Sujata writing, producing, and starring. She served as an HBO Visionaries Ambassador in 2019. She directs This Is My Story, a series in which beloved storyteller LeVar Burton narrates real-life personal experiences of everyday racism. Sujata's debut feature film, Definition Please, is currently screening on the virtual film festival circuit, starting with its world premiere at Bentonville Film Festival in August of 2020. You can find us at theother50%.com for added features, photos, show notes, and the merchandise. You can also listen on Apple Podcasts and all the podcast places. Now keep in mind this was recorded the last week of September, so we recorded remotely, and any references to recent times may already be outdated. And if we refer to the upcoming election, obviously it hadn't happened yet, so that is the context. Okay, here's my conversation with Sujata Day. Have a listen. Sujata Day, I'm so happy you came back to the podcast, and it looks like you have been very busy since I talked to you last.
I've been very busy, and it's cool because last time I was on, we were talking about my first short film, Cowboy and Indian, that I wrote, directed, produced, and starred in. And now I'm back with my first feature that I also wrote, directed, produced, and starred in.
That is amazing. Tell us all about it.
It's called Definition Please. And I mean, there's a whole story. So I'll take you.
Tell it.
Take you way, way back to 4th grade. I'll take you back to 4th grade.
Okay.
I won my class spelling bee in 4th grade. And you think that's a really big accomplishment until you realize that there were only 10 people in my grade. And I went to regionals and I lost in the first round on the word radish. I spelled it with 2 Ds instead of 1 D, and I was devastated.
Understandable, though.
But my teacher who was with me, Mrs. Lewis, she was so comforting, and we stayed for a little while after, and then we left, and I came back to school, and I was sort of the laughing stock of the whole school because I got out on such an easy word. But that really started my fascination with spelling bees, and I would watch the ESPN spelling bee every year. And I would notice that almost every year it was a South Asian American winner. Even last year when we were on set filming, there were 8 winners and 7 of the 8 were South Asian American kids.
What is with that?
I have no idea. It's interesting because I was never forced into spelling. I was just always an avid reader. So I was a decent speller and I never trained or anything. I didn't know any of the rules. I didn't know that when you went up, you wanted to buy time to get the words straight in your head. So you want to ask those questions like definition, please, or language of origin, or can you use the word in a sentence? These are all tricks of the trade. And I obviously, when I started watching the spelling bees on ESPN, I was like, oh, this is what I should have been doing. But I didn't.
You didn't have a coach?
I didn't have a coach, and my parents were just like, oh, you're doing great on your own.
You're fine.
So I noticed that, a lot of spelling bee winners were Indian American kids. And then fast forward to the year 2015, and I was in a UCB sketch writing class, and we had to write a sketch every week. So I was always thinking of new ideas. And one of my ideas was, where are they now, spelling bee winners? And if you Google them, they're all doing fantastic things. They've got 3 PhDs. They're working at NASA. They're designing robots. They're winning the National Poker Tour. And
they're going places.
And so the button of my scene, the sketch, was, okay, well, what if one of these spelling bee kids turned out to be a loser? And so I wrote this very tiny 4-page comedic sketch and turned it in and kind of forgot about it. And then I did the Sundance Screenwriting Lab in 2016. And once you do one of the screenwriting labs, you're automatically considered an alumni. So in 2017, I decided to go to the Sundance Film Festival for the first time. I'd never been before. And I was like, oh, I have an alumni pass. I'm definitely going to go. So the lab founders found out that I was going, and they asked me to be an influencer for the festival. So I was there at really cool events, and I was taking over their Twitter and their Instagram. And it was actually one of the best first times at the festival because I was doing, like, inner stuff, but then I was also able to explore on my own. And so it was really cool because I was like part of the festival, but not really. It was like cool events and people that I was meeting. I was meeting all the filmmakers and the writers. And also one of my friend's films was there. Justin Chan's film Gook was premiering. So I went to see his film and it blew me away. And afterwards I asked him how he got it made. How can I do this? And he was like, girl, I just got my friends and family together, got the money together, and I just did it. And I said, okay, well, that's what I'm going to do. So I went back home. So middle of 2017, started writing the feature of Definition Please based on that little sketch idea. And I explored more of like, okay, so the spelling bee winner is a loser now. She's an adult. And what are the reasons? Why is she a loser? So we explore her relationships with her mom, her relationship with her estranged brother, and just her place in the community. So the title Definition Please obviously refers to what a spelling bee contestant says, but the second meaning of that is defining who you are at a point in your life and who these people mean to you and what you are meant to be doing.
God, so interesting. And then, so you had your script, and it's one thing to say you just do it. Unpack that.
Yeah. So I had my script, and then that was like end of 2017. I was still working on it. I was getting notes from my trusted friends and colleagues. And I would say that I had a decent script by middle of 2018. And then I started pitching it around to production companies that I already had relationships with. So I wasn't cold emailing anyone. I was just like, oh, I've worked with these people before. Let me see what they think of the script. And so that was probably like 5 or 6 places. And I was getting good feedback on the script, but it was one of those things where it's a family dramedy and everyone wants to make the next Avengers. And there's nothing wrong with Avengers. It's very entertaining.
It's fine. But could we have some stories about people?
So my story is about people. And unless I have Brad Pitt and Cate Blanchett starring in my story, then a production company is not going to come on board.
Oh man.
So, yeah. But you know what? I was prepared for that. I've been in Hollywood long enough to understand how everything works. And so then that was 2018 where I was getting this feedback. And then in 2019 I went back to Sundance with HBO. And once again, Justin was there with his second film, Purple. And I was like, what am I doing with my life? I was like, I got to get on this train. And once again, he like did it on his own. He just like got his shit together and like made this movie. And I was like, I got to get my shit together. And something very lucky happened while I was at Sundance early 2019. I had previously sold a show to a studio, and there was a merger that happened, the Time Warner merger. And so I got an email saying that they were releasing my show back to me. And this was along with a huge check. So I was like,
okay.
I was like, this is a sign. So I decided to put all of that money towards my film. And I was the first money into my film. And right after I got back from Sundance, I was like telling everyone and anyone I was meeting with, coffee, lunches, auditions, pitch meetings, hey, I'm shooting this movie June 2019 back home in Pennsylvania. Do you or anyone you know, would they be interested in investing and helping me finance it? And I did find investors, and I got a lawyer on board, and he made up all the, the investor sheets. And then I shot the movie in June of last year.
Okay, hold on. So you got investors to come on board, but you didn't necessarily like do a crowdfunding campaign? You just like a word of mouth?
I did not do a crowdfunding campaign. I was thinking about it, but I decided, since I already had a big chunk of the check myself, I was like, okay, I'm just going to try to find investors. And it was, I will say, a little bit easier to get investors to come on board when they already knew that you were putting money into your movie, because they mentally think in their heads, oh, she's not going to try to lose this money.
Right. She means it.
Which is like completely true, because I like try to get that money back,
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say that it's a game in the brain where it's like, okay, she's got skin in the game, so I will trust her. And I also had many documents that were prepared for these investors. So I had the investor contracts. I had a lookbook for the film. I had a lookbook for me in case they didn't know what I had done before. I had the script. I had the full budget and the top sheet. So I had 6 to 7 documents that I would be sending to these potential investors so that they knew I was serious. And honestly, we were prepping to shoot the whole time. So while I was raising money, I was also texting my friends to cast the film, to be in the movie. And I was hiring crew. I was having movie dates with my cinematographer. And so I was doing a lot in about a 6-month period, 5 to 6 month period of January through May, June.
How much of this did you learn in acting school? You're like running a business.
Well, I never went to acting school. I did acting classes when I was out here, and I did a couple acting classes in college, but I obviously didn't major in acting. I will say I majored in engineering, and that has helped so much, because one of the things that I remember about engineering, when I walked into that first class, my teacher wrote on the board, engineer equals problem solver. And I was like, I'm a problem solver. I'm totally a problem solver. So I internalized that. And I'm someone who doesn't worry unless there's a reason to worry, So while we were raising the money, I was like, you know what? We're just going to make it work with however much money we get. And we ended up getting what we needed, which was great. But I just wasn't going to worry about it. I was just going to be like, okay, well, we're going to go shoot this movie in June if we have $1 or if we have a crazy amount of money. So I do feel like my engineering background helped me prepare in terms of organization, in terms of compartmentalizing all the different roles that I took on for the film, even in writing. Even when I'm writing a script, the creative part of me will just get the ideas down, but then my engineering brain will, do the outline and will make sure that the structure is correct. And yeah, I'm actually really glad that I have an engineering degree, because it has helped me so much in my career now.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds so like such a good fit with producing. I mean, it's such a similar mindset with organization and problem solving and all of that. Oh, so smart. Okay. Now you also directed it.
Yeah.
Talk about how did you change all those hats during the day?
Like I said, I am really good at time management. Something that I do is I make sure to take care of myself. So I sleep 8 to 9 hours a night, and I continued to have that sleep schedule even while we were shooting the 12-hour days. I was like, no matter what, I got to sleep. Mm-hmm. But in terms of the directing part of it all, I just made sure that I had an amazing cast and crew around me when I was texting my friends to be my cast. I knew that they were going to do a great job. And Ritesh Rajan, who plays Sunny, he plays my brother in the film. I would have little rehearsals in LA in my apartment before we left to go to Pennsylvania. So he came over that first time and we were just going to I was like, it's going to be casual read through. You don't have to prepare for anything. So we're doing the scenes, we're reading through the scenes, and he's like full on bawling on my couch. And I was like, oh my God, I have to like get up to his level acting wise.
Oh my God.
So I guess I did something smart because everyone that I hired is better than me and makes me look good. And same with Anna Kaja, who plays my mother in it. She's incredible. So I was putting all those pieces together as a director, making sure that my cast was amazing. And then, like I mentioned before, I was having movie dates with my DP, Brooks Ludwig, and he would come over and we would watch lots of films that maybe were similar in tone, similar in story, similar in look. And we would discuss the films and be like, oh, I liked that scene, or I liked how they shot that scene. And we decided early on that it was going to be handheld. So we watched a bunch of movies. We watched Monsoon Wedding. We watched some Wong Kar-wai films, some recent films like Eighth Grade that came out. And we went through many different movies, just kind of picking and choosing different scene styles. And it was really great because I had to trust Brooks so much because I knew that when we were on set, I would not have the time to look at the footage as we were shooting it because I would be acting in the scenes.
Did you have someone on set, and was it your DP who could watch your performance and give you feedback on it? Or are you an actor who can watch the playback and be able to, self-correct?
So I didn't watch any playback. I completely trusted Brooks in terms of he knew what I wanted as far as the look. And as far as acting is concerned, I'm not too precious with my acting. I know when we're in the scene if we've got it or not, if we're connected, if we're
you feel it.
Yeah, but I just feel it. So that's what I trusted. I trusted our feeling, and I trusted Brooks to be able to get the right angles in the shots, and it worked out. So I think if you're a more insecure actor, it might be harder to be in a scene and then want to watch it back. I didn't watch any of the footage back on the days. I just wanted to watch. I think the time that I watched was when I saw the rough cut or the assembly cut. And I was like, oh my God, we don't have a movie at all.
Despair.
Yeah, but definitely I was not prepared. So people should tell first-time filmmakers that assembly cuts are not what the movie is going to be, because I was literally like, we do not have a movie.
How did that get resolved?
It got resolved because, movies are made of so many different elements, and we had an amazing composer. Music is a huge, huge part of the film and plays into emotions. And so Amanda Jones was our composer, and she started working on the music even before we started filming. So she started working on the music when she had the script and was sending me original songs, and she hired singers out of India to sing a lot of the music because there's music that's language specific. So music was a huge, huge part of it. And obviously the coloring was a huge part of it. The sound design, we got to do sound design at Skywalker Ranch up north. And that was, I will never forget this day when we watched the final sound mix. It's in the theater there, the 300-seat theater. Mm-hmm. And I sat in the middle center in George Lucas's seat. And I was like, I will never forget this moment.
Oh my God. Amazing.
It was incredible. I really had such a wonderful experience making my first film. And I hope that everyone else who is making their first film has an experience like I did, because it was really magical every step of the way.
And do you feel now that you can just do anything?
Sure. Yeah, I remember when I was on set, I was like, this is great. I'm like, I could totally direct a Marvel film right now. And everyone was like, okay, hold your horses.
That's awesome. I'm rooting for you. So the film is finished. It premiered at Bentonville.
It premiered at Bentonville, which was really great because Cowboy and Indian was at Bentonville in 2018. And so I was returning as an alumni, and that's always nice. And I really love Bentonville because they're so inclusive. The other films that were there were really great. Lots of female filmmakers and POC filmmakers with unique stories that you don't see in general in the media. So it was a really perfect premiere for my film.
How did they do it this year? Was it online?
It was online. So yes, we were finished with our film earlier this year, and we were starting to get into a lot of festivals. And that was when we thought we were going to be traveling around the country
on tour,
on our festival tour. And of course, coronavirus hit, and the festivals were figuring out what they were going to do, and we were figuring out what we were comfortable with doing, because we were also already talking to buyers and distributors. And the festivals have done a really good job in terms of their virtual film festival of it all. Bentonville did do the virtual film festival, and something that I loved was on one of the first days they did a filmmaker Zoom. So we were all on a Zoom, and it was a little bit daunting because there were like 4 pages of the Zoom that you had to keep scrolling through, and you're like, I'm not going to be able to talk to anyone. But then we did the breakout rooms, and we would be talking to 4 other filmmakers. So we actually got to know a lot of the other filmmakers there by going into these breakout rooms. And after that first night of the filmmaker Zoom, they hadn't scheduled any more, but we asked for more. So every day they would do a filmmaker Zoom just so we could have some kind of semblance of meeting the other filmmakers and talking to them about their projects. And so ever since then, we have a couple film festivals coming up in October, and October, November, and they're all virtual, obviously. And so I think they're all going to be pretty similar to the Bentonville of it all. It'll be, you'll be able to watch the films, but then hopefully you'll have some kind of happy hour gathering with the filmmakers and get to know them. But it is actually really, really sad that we can't go to these places and celebrate each other's films in the theater. But, we have to make do with what we have. And I'm not trying to I don't want anyone to go to a movie theater and get sick. I'm not going to movie theater anytime soon, so I don't expect other people to go.
Yeah, it's such a weird time, but also a time when everybody's looking for something new and interesting to watch, right? How did the film do at Bentonville?
It did great. It was really well. It had a great response. We got a ton of press out of it, which has been amazing. And we have some really great reviews. And we got a review in the Hollywood Reporter, which was...
Oh my God.
So Beandria July wrote this amazing review that went into a lot of depth in terms of the inspiration for the film. And I was like, wow, she put a lot of work into this review. And that was really great. And so we've been just, getting into more festivals, and that's been really fun, and taking it day by day, and we'll see what happens. I just yesterday, I had an interview in the Pittsburgh City paper that came out, and we shot the film an hour outside of Pittsburgh in Greensburg. So that was really special because I love my hometown. I'm kind of weirdly obsessed with my hometown. Growing up, my parents would be like, oh, we're thinking of buying a house in this other part of town. And I'd be like, no, I like our house in our neighborhood. And that's where I shot my movie. I shot it in my childhood home. So.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Are your parents still there?
Yeah, they're still there.
Oh, that's great. Now, I had read, I think it was that hold on, let me look at right now. I was reading the Deadline article And they quoted you as saying something to the effect of, I was having a hard time getting a seat at the table, so I made my own table.
Yeah.
Let's talk more about that. Because I remember when we talked last time, it was a few years ago, and it seemed like that year there were a lot of pilots on the horizon where there might be a lot of really good, juicy, diverse roles. And then what happened?
So that's interesting because auditioning is so out of your hands. And I am so grateful that I'm a writer and a creator, because if I just relied on someone else to give me a role, then I think I would go insane.
Yeah.
And yeah, I do think that year there were a lot of great roles. And ever since then, there have been some great roles in terms of auditions. But it's one of those things where I'm a writer and I love my scripts, and they're so specific to either how I grew up or places I worked or family references. And so I'm always just pushing to create my own work. And that is obviously a huge inspiration for all of that was my journey through Awkward Black Girl and then Insecure, and going alongside watching Issa do exactly the same thing when she was putting Awkward Black Girl on her own credit cards. That's something that made me, when I got that check for getting my show back, I was like, yeah, of course I'm going to put this check into my film. Whereas I know a lot of other people give the advice, don't ever put your own money into your movie. And I say the exact opposite, because all of my friends that have put their money into their projects has never regretted it. So Issa was one of those people that made her own table. And so I'm literally just following in her footsteps and making my own table. And I hope to inspire generations to come. Something that's cool that's been happening is that a lot of the journalists who have been covering my film have been younger brown girls. So like 20-year-old Indian American girls like me. And they'll watch the movie and they'll think, oh my gosh, I can write something like this. If this story is important, then a story of mine must also be important. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do. You know, it's not just about me. It's about who can I inspire along the way? Who can I instill confidence in terms of your story is also important. Just because you don't see it on TV or in the movies doesn't mean that your story is not important. So it's just very key for people in entertainment right now. If you're not seeing yourselves on screen, then you have to go out and do it yourself. No matter what. Yeah. Put it on those credit cards. Ask your parents for money.
No, it is so important, and it's so courageous of you to go out and do it. I mean, I think it does take a special something to go from, oh, I'm gonna to I'm doing this, I'm in, it's done. Like, what do you attribute that to?
My parents instilled this super confidence in me ever since I was very young. And I'm a little sister. I have an older brother. And they always treated me exactly the same. So they never treated me differently because I was a girl. And they also allowed me to make my own decisions very young. So I would be allowed to wear whatever I wanted to wear. And most of the time I would be a 6-year-old going to school with 2 different pairs of shoes on and not even realize that. but they instilled in me what is important and what is not important. So school was important. So I get really good grades. Discipline was not that important. I don't ever remember getting grounded for anything. I had a lot of freedom to, hang out with my friends and explore and get into trouble. And as long as I was getting straight A's, it actually didn't matter. So that was really like my childhood. And my parents instilling in me like, hey, like you can do whatever you want. Like you're good at math and science, but we're going to support you when you do these musicals and plays, and we'll be in the front row and we'll bring you flowers. And so they never stopped me from doing anything, which I think has led me to how I am, which makes me uber confident and stuff, but probably in a negative way at times. no, it's a great script, or no, I love it. This is great. But I think something about directing that I feel is uber important, and I've seen in directors that I've worked with before who I admire, you really have to be able to make decisions. So you're on set, make a decision. There was one night when I was in a scene, acting, also directing Tesh in the scene, and I get a text message from my producer saying that we lost the bar location for the next day. And this was the evening. We lost the bar in the evening. And I'm in the middle of shooting, and I'm like, oh my God. So I didn't lose my cool at all. In between takes, I would go into the kitchen and text my friend in Pittsburgh to see if he had a friend in Greensburg that we could use a bar. And then we were all texting back and forth. And then we got a potential bar, and one of our PAs went out to take pictures of the bar. And I was like, that's great. And it's done. And it was done. It was handled. Nobody even knew that there was a situation.
In the middle of shooting for the next day.
In the middle of shooting.
Yeah. Well done.
Yeah. So I think it's part of my upbringing. It's part of, I don't worry unless there's a huge reason to worry. And I just take care of stuff. So like you said, in terms of, there's a difference between, I'm going to do it, I'm going to get to it someday. And there's the people that just do it. So I've always been that person that just does it. And I hate talking about things unless it's a real thing. So that's why in January of 2019, I was like, I had the check in my hand, and I was like, this is a real thing now. I'm going to do it June 2019. And the pitch that I gave everyone was, the train is moving. I'm shooting on June 1st, regardless of whether you give me money or not. So do you want to get aboard the train, or do you want to not?
Have the train pass you by.
Yeah.
That you also seem super even keeled. Like, after you sleep for 9 hours, do you get up and do an hour of yoga? Like, what do you do to keep yourself so even?
That's one of my best traits. Thank you for noticing that. I pride myself on staying neutral in all situations. And I've always been very zen. I don't do yoga. I don't love yoga. I tried meditating once, and it stressed me out because I had that app that kept sending me message like, have you meditated today? And I was like, I was like, wait, I'm never stressed out, but now I have this stupid meditation app and it's stressing me out. So I had to delete it off my phone. And yeah, I've just always been very neutral. And even if something exciting and fun happens, I'll stay neutral.
Great. Fantastic.
And even if something really disappointing happens, I'll stay neutral. And that has helped me tremendously throughout quarantine and this coronavirus situation, where I'll stay neutral and I'll just put my head down and write and do my work and, work on the movie, getting it out there, and just, keep working. There's no need to, I like to stay in the moment. So I don't think about what's happening later or what happened yesterday. So I think that's part of how I stay so zen.
Oh, I've been saying that to people about this time. Really the only thing we can do is stay in the moment, because no one knows anything anymore. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Right this second, nothing is happening to us. If you could just stay here, we're going to be fine. Fingers crossed.
Right. Because if you think about it right now in this moment, we're both totally fine.
Yeah.
I'm drinking my chai that I made this morning. I'm in my lovely apartment. I went to the beach yesterday. My life is good.
Now, let's zoom out a little bit, because the outside world is exploding in every way. What are you making of this? I think the first time we talked, had Me Too even happened yet? I imagine we talked about that a little bit, if it had.
I'm not sure.
Okay, since we talked, Me Too happened. And then the current, I don't even know what to call it, political mishigas is happening. George Floyd happened. The world is on fire, and California literally on fire. Do you have a perspective on kind of what is happening in the world right now?
It's interesting because I watched the debate, not all of it. I watched like 10 minutes of it, and then I turned it off because I know what side I'm on. Nothing's.
Yeah.
I feel like with everyone who was watching, they already made their decisions. So debates aren't going to change anyone's mind. And at this point, I think the only thing we can do is vote. And so something that I've been working on is getting out voters in my home state of Pennsylvania, since it's a swing state. And my mom has been on top of that too. She's Indian American immigrant in Pennsylvania. There's a huge Indian American community there. So she's been talking to her friends, making sure that they get out and vote. And it's interesting because there's a little bit of hope out of yesterday. I'm from a very small town in Greensburg, and Biden did his whistle stop tour. That's hard to say. Whistle stop tour.
It is hard.
Yeah. It was like Pittsburgh to Greensburg to Latrobe to Johnstown to all these really small towns in Pennsylvania. And when he stopped in Greensburg, there was a huge crowd for him, and it was mostly women. And I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
And so, we'll see what happens. Once again, we can only do as much as we can do. And then whatever happens, happens. And then we figure it out at that point. But in terms of entertainment and Hollywood and what's happening in our little microcosm of the world, I feel like there's a wave happening of people who are not afraid to speak out anymore, which is great. And that is in terms of Me Too, in terms of diversity, in terms of inclusivity, and nothing can get by the audience anymore, which I'll talk about a movie like Milan. I
was going to say, Disney just learned the hard way.
They learned the really hard way, which is really interesting because Milan was actually the last event that I went to. I went to the premiere of Milan. It was on a Monday, the Monday before everything shut down. It was a little crazy being there because me and my friends were like, should we be here? And, people were flying in internationally, and there was food out. And I was just like, this feels like not safe.
Because that was when we were starting to read all the stories out of Italy. Like, this is a thing.
Yeah. So then we saw Milan in the theater, and I just want to say it's gorgeous. And it belongs in the theater. It's a big screen movie. It's got these beautiful landscapes. It's got these fight scenes, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So then when it came out, I was like, oh, Milan's great. Whoever's seeing it, I wish you could have seen it in the theater. And then I started reading all the stuff about who was behind the scenes. And I was like, oh no, why did they do this?
Read the room, man. Why
did they do this? And that keeps happening. But as it keeps happening, like even since Milan, there's been a couple announcements about other films that also have, an all-white team. And people keep getting called out. So I think that's part of it. Whereas before, everybody was afraid to call out these big studios. And now it's like, no, you can't do this anymore. Stop, whitewashing stuff. And so that, I think that's the good part about it, is that we're not afraid to call it out anymore. And you don't feel like you'll be punished if you do call it out.
Right. That's the thing. I remember the guy who was in Star Wars who went to the Black Lives Matter march in London.
John Boyega.
Yes. And then he went up to the front and said his thing, and it was so scared to do it, thinking this may be the end of my career and I'm going to go do it. But I think he was met with such support and love about that. It is, times they are changing.
Yeah. I do feel like that. And I feel like, once again, the industry is never going to move fast enough for the rest of us. And there was an article that went out that had the pictures of every high-level studio exec at the studios. I don't know if you saw that one. And oh my gosh. I mean,
is it all white, mostly men?
Yeah. Older,
Yeah.
And And you look at it and you're like, okay, these are the people making decisions. And that's why we see the similar movie and the similar TV shows come out year after year after year. And the creators and the writers who are being innovative and working outside of the box, whether it's across social media platforms, like the reason Awkward Black Girl spread and went viral was through Facebook because it was before the algorithms. Mm-hmm. And now, of course, it's like there's got algorithms and nothing can go viral anymore. But it's really cool because I feel like younger filmmakers are turning to TikTok and Snapchat and IGTV and creating their own stuff, regardless of what anyone says. And I think that's really a move in the right direction. And people are getting hired off of these videos and getting shows. And yeah, I think the times are changing. It's never fast enough, but it's also important for us to keep our heads down and do our own work and, be aware that this stuff is still going on and that, you might still go out and pitch to 6 or 7 different networks or studios and get turned down, but that doesn't mean that's the end of the road. Just work on your next thing. I think what I always count on is I never put all my eggs in one basket. So even at this moment in time, I wrote 2 scripts over quarantine. I wrote a pilot. I wrote my second feature. I have 3 shows at 3 different production companies. One's at a studio. And I know how long everything takes. So, even if the studio calls and says, oh, we have a director on board, I'm like, okay. In that neutral position. And I'm like, great. When are we getting into the writer's room?
Exactly. When do I start?
So I think it's just really important to stay creative and, we will get out of this quarantine at some point, and that's when I'm going to shoot my second feature. So it's really important to be prepared for that and be prepared for when all these shows that are being greenlit right now in terms of pilots, who knows, like 3 of them might make it to air, and then they're going to be looking for more shows, and there's more channels than ever before. So executives are definitely looking for content.
Yeah. Do you have your second feature? Do you know what it is already?
Yes. So when I was growing up in Pennsylvania, I went to Hindu temple camp every summer. And I call it a white girl's wet dream because we were just, we would eat vegan food all week long. We'd be doing yoga twice a day. We would do all the regular camp activities. And then we'd be learning Bollywood dancing every day. And it was all pretty hysterical. And I love the Wet Hot American Summer movie and series. So my film is an Indian American Wet Hot American Summer.
I love it. And I want to go to that camp.
I knew you would.
All about it. Oh my God. Okay. What other, because you've given a lot, but what is your advice for women coming up behind you?
Don't give up and make sure that you have a good network of people around you. I think that's what's most important is have a great network of people around you that can read your scripts, that can be your cheerleader and you can be their cheerleader, and you'll start to come up together. So what I love is even when I was making Definition Please, it was really great because I didn't have to do casting sessions. I could just text my friends. So I had this network of Indian American friends that I just had in my contacts. And these are people that I've known for 8 or 9 years. And so it's important to make that network. And then as you go through the years and make that network, you start to be in each other's projects. And I'm just trying to do like Judd Apatow always has the same people in his movies. And, David Lynch always has the same people in his movies. So I'm just trying to make like this filmmaking network that I can always rely on. And I know that these people are at the top of their game and they're good. And I feel like that's really important. Just have a great support network and create with them and see what kind of magic comes out of that.
Where can people find you?
I'm on all the socials. So Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, at Sujata Day. And my film is also on the socials, Definition Please, on Instagram and Facebook. And then on Twitter, it's DEFN Please. And yeah, check out the film if it comes to a virtual film festival near you.
Thank you so much for coming back and telling us what you're doing.
Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to The Other 50%, A Herstory of Hollywood. I'm Julie Harris Walker. I'd like to thank Sujata Day for sharing her story. And special thanks to Jay Rowe, Danny Rosner, and Allison McQuaid for the music. Please find us on your favorite podcast provider and leave a review. And of course, on our website, theother50%.com, all spelled out, for added features, bios of our guests, and the merch. It is not too late to order yourself the Other 50% coffee cup for Christmas. You can also follow us on all the social media platforms. Thanks for listening. See you next time.